What was your first angling memory?
I think my first sort of like angling memory were from being a kid really. I think my dad were always an angler. My mum were always an angler or part of an angling family, and you know, it's something what you get brought up into. Whether people take into angling or they don't take into it. You know, I think right from an early age, I think I wanted to be an angler. I wanted to go fishing or be part of fishing because it's somewhat what Dad did. And I think as a kid growing up, you don't see him on a weekend, and you're wondering where he's going. And you know, you mess about, you play as kids, and then you suddenly start asking questions like, "Well, where's Dad go on a weekend?" And he goes fishing. And I think right from an early age, we went fishing, or Dad went fishing. It was part of fishing. Fishing was the whole sort of household, and that's what we did. That's what we did, and you know, it was great. You know, family-wise, were great. We were all involved in fishing. It was a massive fishing household, and that's how it really came about. And Mum always said to me, "Whatever you do, he will never go fishing because I've not got the patience." And Dad always wanted me to go fishing, but she always said to him that, like, look, he hasn't got the patience. I was quite hyperactive as a kid, which were quite funny. I'm probably a lot more subdued now than I ever were, but I was quite hyperactive as a kid, and she'd never think I'd sit there, but suddenly they put a fishing rod in my hands at 4-year-old, and I would sit there all day and never shift. So they're my first sort of angling memories.
Right, who taught you how to fish?
Well, I've probably got a couple of people to thank for that. My dad initially, because my dad were a really, you know, he were a really keen angler. He weren't the most blessed of anglers, my dad, I would gladly say that, but he were good at what he did, and he was one of the old school sort of swing tip, breaming type anglers, and you know, he could hold his own with anybody at that type of fishing. So I've got to be thankful for that. He brought me up doing a lot of feeder fishing, or bomb fishing as it was at the time, swing tip, bomb fishing, with the likes of, you know, Ernest Stanford, Jack Clayton. You know, these are all memories from being a child and seeing these people. Ivan Marks in particular. I spent a youthful sort of days sitting behind Ivan, sitting behind Graham Barry, Roy Marlowe, all the like lads what fished on the fens, middle level, 10 Mile Bank, and all that. And you know, it was great growing up at that time. It was the real sort of mecca of match fishing. Everybody fished these big matches, and you know, they weren't big matches that, you know, people think big matches now are like 60, 70 peggers. Like, these were 600, 700, 800 peg matches, and you won one a season, and it made your season. So it was great, you know, growing up and physically watching some of these anglers what were catching bream and learning from them. And I think from being a kid and being on that bike and being, you know, physically being around them type of people, I think they know when, even somebody at a young age, I think they know when you're sort of deadly serious about what you want to do and you want to be part of fishing, and you know, they're willing to help you out and learn you. And the other person I've got to thank really is my stepdad. Mum and Dad split up when I was like 11, 12-year-old, and I know my stepdad a long time. He lived down there, and Mum went to live down Kings Lynn, and he taught me other great aspects of fishing, because Ray were a brilliant bream angler, but he were also brilliant at catching small fish and catching roach and catching things like that, which Dad were never good at that. Dad taught me how to catch big fish. Ray taught me the finer arts of catching, you know, sort of roach and small fish weights and that. And it was it was a perfect combination, and I really can't thank pairing them enough, really. Dad's no longer with us, which, yeah, everybody misses the dad when they're not there, sort of thing. But you know, I can't thank Dad enough, and probably while they were alive, I don't know, probably never thanked him enough. So, and I don't think people realise that. You know, there's the horrible saying, you only miss them when they're gone, and it's perfectly true. And yeah, that's who started me fishing and got me on where I am now.
So what was your favourite place to fish as a kid? What sort of venue?
Favourite place to fish as a kid? It was really quite strange growing up as a kid. Like, you know, I'm 50 next year, and I think as growing up, being part of, like, Sheffield had a big sort of match fishing mecca, but we always travelled for our fishing. You know, River Trent were still in the doldrums. Sheffield Canal, you know, you put your feet in the canal and they dropped off, it with that polluted. River Don, you know, there were no fishing any in them like they are now. So we had to travel for our fishing, and it was like, you know, Witham, 10 Mile Bank, Middle Level, places like that. So I think probably my favourite place as a kid growing up were Middle Level in Kings Lynn, because I grew up, I learnt to fish on there. Dad fished on there a lot. 6 weeks holiday, spent 6 weeks holiday down there and fished every day. Sort of, Mum would take me, or my stepdad Ray would take me and drop me off and whatever. And you know, that's where I grew up and learnt to fish, and it was one of my favourite venues because, like I said, really venues around Sheffield. We had Damflass, we had Underbank, and we had Aston Ponds, as it were, and you know, a few people went on them, but everybody did a bit of travelling. So that's where I did majority of my fishing growing up. And as you get older, obviously things changed. Fens went through doldrums and things like that, and you look for new venues. And this was, you know, long before commercials were ever even thought of. And I actually do a lot of work down there as well now, repping, and I go past all these fen drains, and they bring back so many good sort of childhood memories in doing what I did down there. And yeah, it's got a special place in my heart down there, and I wish I could get more fishing done down there now, but I just never seem to get a chance. But you never know, one day.
So, how did you get into match fishing?
Well, how I first got into match fishing, obviously Dad always fished, and he always fished matches, and I showed an interest in going fishing right from being sort of 4-year-old, and Dad used to take me along to watch, and he won't let me fish. He won't let me fish because he thought I'd either mess about or whatever. And it was quite funny actually, because the banks on Middle Level and 10 Mile Bank are quite steep. They're quite deep waters. Obviously at 4 or 5-year-old I couldn't swim. So Dad used to take me along with Mum. We used to go in a Morris Minor. I've got pictures of us all going in a Morris Minor. There'd be Mum and Dad's tackle. We all went in this Morris Minor, all together fishing, and Dad would fish. And he won't let me go anywhere near water. So he had a belt made for me. And there was a belt which obviously went round my waist with a rope on, which they used to tie me to the bank so I couldn't physically fall in. Which seems barbaric at the time, but quite funny that, you know, they didn't want to see me drowned. So Mum used to fish, Dad used to fish, and there I were, staked to the bank a bit like a dog, so I wouldn't fall in, sort of thing. Which, yeah, we laugh about it now, and it quite funny. A good few years ago, I was cleaning Dad's shed out, and we found this belt, and we laughed about it a long time. But yeah, I used to go along and watch, but he would never let me fish until I learnt to swim. That was my key thing. He says, you know, if you want to fish, you can do. We'll get your own rods, but you've got to learn to swim first. Because last thing you want to do is try fishing and you're actually belted down to the bank trying to fish, sort of thing. So once I could swim, he then let me start fishing and started helping me out. But long before then, he had me like doing casting and learning how to cast and whatever. So I did show quite, like I said, quite an interest early. And I think I probably caught my first fish when I was about 6, 7 year old, which I can't actually remember that far back what it was. It was probably a perch, or it might have been a roach, or whatever. But that got me hooked, and that's where I started fishing.
So, how did you make it into the England junior team then?
How did I make it into England junior team? Well, I would have been around about 14 at the time. I was fishing for Sheffield Juniors. That would have been around about 1983 probably. We're fishing for Sheffield Juniors, which Jim Baxter was the coach of the Sheffield Juniors then, and it came about from the old National Federation of Anglers that they wanted to do an England junior team. Now, this had come about from, I think, from Europe somewhere, that, you know, obviously the World Championships had gone on for years, but they'd never had a junior sort of under 18, under 19 competition before, and it was something that were going to be established. It was going to happen, and they asked for people to put the names forward, because junior nationals at the time, there were 40, 50, 60 teams of 10 anglers at that time. They were, you know, junior nationals were massive. They were as big as other men's nationals and whatever, and they had coaches and things like that. So it was quite easy to sort of get a junior team together. Anyway, it was put out to all the different juniors to put people's names forward to potentially go for England trials and things like that. Anyway, Jim put my name forward. There were some other lads from Sheffield as well. There were Tony Bell, Lee Walker, myself, a couple of lads from Barnsley. There was Sean Stenton, Dave Evans, and that. There were a good gang of us, and, you know, match fishing were, and junior match fishing were good at that time. Anyway, we got his name put forward. Roy Jeffries was England junior manager at that time, or, you know, the NFA appointed him as England junior manager, and he started to have trials, and there were big trials, lots of people there, and it gradually got whittled down to a trial of about 20 people in the end, and that's how the England sort of setup come about. And like I said, Roy had to pick his first team. There was no mention of World Championships or anything at that time. It was only home internationals. And home internationals then, you know, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, they were the home internationals. And the first home international we had was only 2 nations. I think it was ourselves and Wales what had teams in, and we fished at home Pierpoint. But we had trials and got through for that. And Dad always said to me, he says, don't be surprised if you don't get selected or whatever, but, you know, it's one of them things. Try your best and go from there. Anyway, Roy, I like Roy. You know, we became good friends over years from being a kid, and Roy was very military. He did everything, you know, came from it. He did everything sort of military, and it was a great bloke. He was a great bloke. Always had people to help him out with tactics, but he was a great bloke, and he was good at organising. But we used to have that trial, and then he'd sit everybody down and announce the team right at the very end. And there we were. We'd had the trials. They were on the River Soar, the trials, and, you know, River Soar at the time was just absolutely full of gudgeon, and you had to go. You must realise Poles then 1983 were really still in their infancy, and we had a pole trial, and we had us fishing, and I were really no pole angler at that stage. I'd only just sort of learnt to fish with one, and we had us trials, and he announced the team, and sure enough, my name got read out for first home international, which was 1984. So that was great. That were a real sort of eye from a kid's background, really looking at it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed my England days. And getting in that first ever team. It was the first ever junior team to get in, and yeah, it was great. It was great. Loved every minute of it, because you're just kids at that time, and you don't actually realise how good an achievement it is until you get a lot older and look back at it and think, I enjoyed that. That was brilliant. That were like, I won't miss that for the world. And yeah, if you could go back in time, I'd like to do it all again, but not now. I'm too old.
So you won gold with the first ever England under-19s team. Can you tell us a bit about that day and what happened?
Yeah, we'd had home internationals. We'd had 3 home internationals before that. 2 were in England, 1 at Home Pierpoint, 1 on the Trent Embankment, which was the same day as the seniors one. The seniors fished on the opposite bank, and we fished on this bank. And so we'd had 3 home internationals, 2 in England, 1 in Scotland, which we were undefeated on them all. And then the Worlds came about. It was the first ever World Championships for under-19s, which carried on at under-19s level for quite a while. But it's now under 25, and they have all different age groups, because that's been the natural progression of the competition. But the first ever World Champs were 1987, and it was in Ireland on the River Inner, which the River Inner can be quite a prolific river at certain times of the year, because it's a migratory river. The roach migrate through it, and weights are massive. But what I might say, when we went, it was July time. It was horrific. It was just normal fish. When by normal fish, they were the fish that lived there all the time. All the migratory fish had gone through, and it was awful. It was awful, awful fishing. Not a lot of fish to be caught, but still a match, and there's always going to be a winner at the end. And I managed to get in the team, which, again, I suppose to be in the first ever team, that's an achievement in itself. We did win it, and it was the old system at the time. They had the team match the first day, and the second day it was an individual match. And if you scored enough points on the first day, you fished the individual the second day. And we went across for a week and practised. But before that, and this is quite important to the story, really. They used to have quite a few junior events in Ireland, and we'd had us meeting and everything. And Roy Jeffries actually said to us, "Look, there's a big junior competition on in Ireland. It's on the River Blackwater. Anybody who's really interested in getting in this team must fish this competition on the River Blackwater in Ireland." Now, I was going to Ireland at the time. I was going 2, 3, 4 times a year. I used to go on the Ban Bonanzas and things like that. And the Ban Bonanza at the time, they always had a junior event in the Ban Bonanza, as well as the senior event. They run in conjunction with each other, so you could draw next to Dennis White if he were there. And as a kid, it was great. You were drawing next to your angling heroes and fishing against them, but it was part of a junior match. But there was this junior Blackwater Bonanza. It was sponsored by DAM at the time, and Ian Heaps were going to be there and everything, and he was walking about doing that. Anyway, God knows where Dad used to get his money from, but anything to do with fishing, it was like, I'm going to get you there. And we went across on this Blackwater Bonanza, and although there was an England trial after, the England trial was still part of this sort of Blackwater junior event, and Roy Jeffries was there, and he was walking round, and I actually won the match on the day. It was just a 1-day event, we were there for 3 days. It was a 1-day event, and I actually won the Blackwater Junior Bonanza. I always remember it weren't a massive weight. I think I had £49. Just it were a good weight, and Roy watched me for a considerable amount of time during that day. Ian Heaps were there as well, and he'd watched me, and I actually won this event. And as a kid, you just like, yeah, won the event, gone home. And it were only later on, when the team was selected and I got into the team, and yeah, you get a bit older. Dad actually said to me, he says, I don't think you'd have got in that team if you hadn't won that match. If you hadn't won that match, you probably wouldn't have got in the team. And he says, and I don't think your name were down on that team sheet before that match. But you opened a few people's eyes as to what you could do and how you could fish. And Dad always said that's what got me in the team. So yeah, we fished on the river inner. We had a fantastic team. The team was, to die for. At the time, there was myself, Chris Mayer, who was Alan Mayer's son, who was a fantastic angler. Mike Poulton, Ian Moulton, who went on fish for Momar, Stu Conroy, who went on and fished for Drennan Team England for I don't know how many years. Myself and Kevin Pargeter, who's a lad from Manchester, and it was just a belting team, and we all got on, and we fished. We sorted a little few things out. It was never going to be a pole match. It was always going to be a waggler match. And at that time, sort of like mid-70s, a lot of the foreign teams what come over, they couldn't fish wagglers. They didn't know how to fish wagglers as good as what we did, and we blitzed it on the day. And I don't think there's anything finer than representing your country, physically walking up onto that stage, national anthem playing, gold medal around your neck. Thank you very much. It don't get any better than that. And somebody who's, I was 18 at the time, somebody who's 18 at the time, like, life can't get any better than that. And it was just a great time of life to be part of it, to be part of the first one, and staying friends with these people, for the rest of your life. It's fantastic, really good.
Right, so how did you get into the Barnsley Black team?
And I got into Barnsley Blacks. Well, from being sort of like 14, I'd fished for Sheffield Amalgamated, which in turn became Brummell Scrap men. Dave Spate was captain at that time. Dave's a great bloke, yeah. Dave thought world of me, and we had a really good side at the time. Sheffield Amalgamated, Brummell Scrapman, whatever you want to call them. We had a great side, and they were all Sheffield lads in that side, and we all fished together as a team. And some of the lads I'd actually fished with a long time, sort of Kevin Rice, David Hall, Dave Spate, Jim Baxter, Gary Mason, Steve Bieber. They were all Sheffield anglers, and we all like fished together. In fact, we used to have two teams in the winter leagues, an A and a B team, and I think for 1 year I fished in the B team. I was the best point scorer in the B team, and Dave quickly realised, and he put me in the A. He put me straight in the A team the year after. And that I'd be about 16 then, and I fished in the side for a good few years, Division 1 nationals, and also Eastern regions. And it was the Eastern region what was the sort of big thing on Winter League. 250 peggers at the time, and they'd be on the Trent, the Witham, places like that, and that's where we came up against the mighty Barnsley team. And the Barnsley team at the time were just like incredible. And I think Dave knew all along that sooner or later Barnsley were gonna come calling. In I think the last year I fished for Sheffield, it were quite funny actually, because going into the very final round of the Eastern Winter League, ourselves and Barnsley were tied on points. We one round to go. And the last round was on the Witham, and it was a freezing cold day. It were -9. -9. The sun came out and it went to -8, and they decided to fish this sort of last round, and we had to beat Barnsley to get into the Angling Times Winter League final. And obviously Barnsley had got to beat us. We tried everything possible to get bloodworm, and we failed miserably. We turned up that morning and Barnsley had got every bit of bloodworm possible. It's like, you know, whatever Barnsley wanted they got, and we fished that last round and come second to them. You know, there were areas that day where nobody caught a fish. It was horrendous. I'll remember it because I finished 5th in the match. I drew on the pound length. I had £4.15 of roach on a waggler, and you had one run through and then had to de-ice the runners. And I got a mild case of frostbite in my fingers from fishing that day, and I actually had 3 or 4 days off work. I were an apprentice at the time, painting and decorating, and I couldn't hold the paintbrush for a few days. But straight after that match, it would have been 3 or 4 weeks after the event. I'd come home from work one night, and I think Dad knew. I still lived at home, and I think Dad knew because we'd known Dick Clegg a long time. I used to go in his tackle shop as a kid when it were in Sheffield, and I think he'd already spoke to Dad, and the phone rings one night. Dad answered it and he says, "It's for you." And I'm like, "Who is it?" Just thinking it was one of my mates ringing up and asking about weekend fishing. He says, "It's Dick Clegg." And I went, yeah, all right. And he went, "No, it's Dick Clegg. He wants to talk to you." And I've answered the phone, and sure enough, there's this big sort of gruff Barnsley voice, and it was Dick Clegg. And he says, "I've just got one question to ask you," and he says, "You can answer yes or no. He says, it's up to you." He says, "I'd like you to join Barnsley." And I went, "Oh, right, okay." He went, "I don't need a decision straight away, but before you put phone down, I need to know yes or no." Typical Dick, straight to the point, like cut to the chase. I want to know yes or no before we put the phone down. And I says, "I can't really say no, can I?" And he went, "Not if you've any sense about your young kinder," because that's what he used to call me. He says, "Not if you've any sense about your young kinder." He says, "You'll say yeah." He says, "I hope you're going to say yeah." He says, "Because tomorrow morning I've booked you in at Ashley Rogers Taylor's." He says, "For measuring up, because we always had Barnsley jackets made." He says, "We're having some new ones made," and he says, "I booked you in for an appointment to have your suit made." He says, "Because I know you're not going to say no." So I said, "Yeah." Couldn't really turn that down, and that were my sort of like influx into joining Barnsley, to which I fished for him for 24 years.
You're one of the best feeder anglers in the UK. Everybody says it. Why are you not fishing for England?
Well,
because you're the talented, one of the best feeder anglers in the UK today, definitely. And everybody, I wish I had, £1 for everybody who mentions it to me, who says, you know, Andy Kinder is awesome, So, you know, if this is going out, and I hope you keep this bit on, David, you know, the England feeder manager out there, give this guy a chance. Come on, what's going on?
Well,
You can answer that?
Nah. Listen, it is what it is. It's a great team what they've got, and the team's ranked number 1 in the world. So you know, there's no disputing in that one. So I've got no axe to go. I know it, and I just carry on going my fishing. I love my fishing. I enjoy my fishing. I go every week, and I'll not change that. I'll just still keep going every week and just doing what I do, and that's what I do. And and that's what I think I do best.
Right, so you coached Sheffield Juniors for 5 years. In that time you won the Junior National twice. What was your secret behind the team?
It was quite weird. It was something I always wanted to do. I've always been one of these people that, you know, angling's been good to me. It's been good to me all my life. It's something I've enjoyed. And I always think to myself, if I can put that little bit of something back into it, and people can get as much enjoyment out of it as what I've got out of it, great. And that's what I will always try and do. And I'd always try and do that. And I've always tried to do that. Really, all through my fishing career and whatever, that's something I've always tried to tell people, you know, get some enjoyment out of it, and if I can put that little bit of something back and it gets somebody fishing, or they catch them a few extra fish by what I've told them to do, that's great. So the junior thing came about. It were quite funny really how it came about, because at the time I'd started in the angling trade, and I was visiting shops, and I was going in and seeing John Gunn, who had Gunny's Tackle in Sheffield, and I used to see Tony Hall in there, and his son Jamie were you know, he were quite up and coming he was up and coming angler at the time, and they were fishing, you know, Jamie were fishing for Sheffield Juniors, and they were having 1 or 2 matches on the canal in Sheffield Canal on a Tuesday evening, and when I was working as an apprentice of that, there's a young lad. It was my old boss. It was his nephew, and he wanted to be part of it. So I started taking him down to fish for Sheffield Juniors. I was helping him and doing a bit of fishing, and he were getting on really well, catching some fish, and he fished a national on the Grand Union Canal. And like I said, Jim was running it at the time, and Kevin Hodgkinson's dad, I forget his name, but Kevin Hodgkinson's dad was helping him. Anyway, they'd had enough. I think Jim had really not got enough time. He was busy with the Angling Star paper. Kev Hodgkinson's dad were working for British Gas and whatever, and they really couldn't put the time in and whatever. And Tony, Jamie's dad, says, "Look, I think I'm gonna start to run these junior events." And I said to him, I says, "Look, I'll give you a hand if you want." And I says, I'm sure we can. I says, but I says, look, if we're gonna do it, we don't want to mess about, and we're not, you know, let's treat these kids, you know, they're not. I think when kids get to 12, 13 and 14-year-old, you know, they're turning into young men, young ladies. You know, we had quite a lot of young girls come down and fishing. You know, you've got to treat these people as if they're one of your own, and that's what we quickly found out, me and Tony, that it was no good talking to these kids and trying to make them fish like kids, because they didn't want to fish like kids. You know, they've got angling heroes. You know, they love the likes of, you know, your Alan Scott-Owens and, you know, your Bob Nudds and whatever, and they wanted to be like them. And we found we got the best from them kids as if you spoke to them like you'd speak to any angler. And I think they respected what I said. Obviously they knew I fished for Barnsley. Tony, although was an angler, he would openly admit he's no longer with us, bless him, and he knew he weren't an angler, but he could quickly spot things, what people were doing wrong, and said, that's not right, that. And you know, we had a great working relationship, that Tony could spot that. He did all the organising, I looked after the fishing side of things. And like I said, we quickly found out that if you could speak to these kids like men, like women, like adults, they responded better to you. You know, it were no good teaching them to fish and say, well, you need to fish this little whip here and like that, because it weren't right. And that's what we quickly found, and that's where I think the success came from. You know, we won 2 junior nationals, one on the Avon, one on the Witham. In fact, the Witham performance were just, it was stunning. We took the lads down, and they practised, and it were eel fishing at the time, and a little bit of bloodworm fishing. Well, these lads, they never picked a bloodworm up in their life. They didn't know what a bloodworm were, but 5 minutes with them, and you speak to them properly, and they were catching fish, and they knew how to. And like the time they'd done, they were equally efficient catching eels and anything what we could do. So we knew we could get good team points everywhere. And at that time when we were coaching with them, I didn't say anything at the time, but we had them down on the Witham for a coaching session, and I asked Pete Bagshaw from Barnsley to come down, Andy Sellers, and they spent the day with us, and they spent the day with these kids. And I says, look, don't treat them as kids, treat them like adults, and I says, you'll get the best out of them. Talk to them as if you're talking to me, talk to them as if you're talking to Bob Nudd and whatever, and I said, you will get the best out of them. And that was our success, and they responded better to you, and it were great. And same thing again, there's no finer feeling. It's as good for you, it was as good for Tony to see them kids go up, get their medals, win, and it's quite an easy, because we always go on coaches then, it's quite an easy coach drive going on, because you can sit there and they're all just rioting it back because they've won. And that were our success, and it were good. It were good. I don't think junior angling will ever be what it were then. But some of them lads that fished in that team today have gone on to be brilliant anglers in their own right. Some of them went on and represented England juniors, quite a few. In fact, my brother-in-law, he went on, he fished for England twice. Jamie Hall fished for England 3 or 4 times. Stuart Gunn fished for England 3 or 4 times. Jamie Harrison fished for England 3 or 4 times. Martin Elliott owns Wickersley Angling Centre. He went on to do all that. So there were some great kids at that time. But a team is only as good as the last angler. But they were all as good as one another, and they'd all fished together as a unit. And good set of lads, and great to be part of it. It was fantastic.
You spend a lot of time at Hayfield Lakes. Why is this such a special place for you?
Hayfield Lakes, it's just the nicest place in the world to fish. It's a great venue. It's my type of venue. It's a big sort of open expanse of water. I'm not a big lover of these snake-like commercials sort of thing. I like something where I can have a go at, be it feeder fishing, be it pellet waggler, things like that. And it's just a special place, and especially now Fishermania's back here. Match this qualifier, we've had 2 match this finals on here, which I must say the first match this final we had on here, and I don't think there'll ever be a final what will be as good as what that were, because Jamie Hughes and he were fish for fish with John Winkle. It was just an awesome final to watch, and I think if anybody ever witnessed that final, they'd want to fish Hayfield for the rest of their life, and it's just a special place. Robin and Nolly what own it are great people. They look after their anglers what come and fish, and it's just a fantastic place. And especially through work as well, we sponsor the fishery, which is even better. And it was quite funny actually, the sponsorship side of it. I was in a tackle shop in Doncaster, and who should walk in but Robin, and this were long before Maver sponsored it and anything, and it was a strange meeting. And I actually said to him, I says, Robin, I says, you should be selling my gear in your shop. And he went, that's right, I should. And we arranged a meeting, came up, he agreed to put some stuff in the shop, and by the time he'd done, we were sponsoring the fishery, and that's how it came about. And I just love coming here. It's pretty close to home, it's 15-20 minutes from home. I do some coaching up here, different people and whatever, and just a special place, and it'll be a special place for people what win Fish Yo, people what won Match This. I'm sure it'll remain in their hearts as a special place, and it is one of them type of places that you come and you get hooked on it. And the great matches up here as well. We you know, Graham runs them. We are helping run the matches up here as well, and yeah, I just can't say how nice a place it is. It's just a nice place to be sat. Love it.
So you've been sponsored by Maver for almost 20 years. Would you ever consider being sponsored by a different company?
Would ever be considered? Well, would ever be considered to sponsor me? I suppose you can never say never in this life, because obviously things sometimes change and people move on to different companies. But I class myself as quite a loyal sort of person, and you know, if somebody's been good to you over them years, I think you should always keep that little bit of loyalty to them, unless some things aren't right and nothing's going your way. I'll remain loyal to my sponsors and my people, and that's what I'll do. But like I say, people never say never in this life, but I've always been true to them, and as it stands, I should carry on.
So what's your biggest achievement in angling?
My biggest achievement in angling? Oh God, I suppose I could write a book, and probably I might write a book when I get a bit older. Few things, couple really that spring to mind. One in particular was when we were fishing for Barnsley. I think, looking back on the year, it would have been 1997, Division 1 National. When I joined Barnsley, the only competition Barnsley had never actually won, they never actually won the World Club Champs, which now they have. And to qualify for the World Club Champs, you had to win Division 1 National. That got you to the World Club Champs. And it was the only sort of major competition that Barnsley had never won. And the National that year was on Stainforth Canal and New Junction. And we'd more or less planned this from the year previous, in the fact that we were going to go all out to win this Stainey Canal match, and we put a lot of time in, a lot of time practicing. Tommy Pickering was captain at the time, and you know, he drilled it home to us about the amount of time practicing, and we shared every bit of information we got. And the Monday before we had our team meeting, team were picked, I was picked to fish. You know, we walked out of that meeting as if we couldn't be beat. And you know, I don't think anybody in the country would have backed against us, because there was an embassy pairs the day before, and we had 10 pairs in that embassy pairs, and the top 15 pairs in that competition, all 10 Barnsley anglers were in it. Nobody were first, second or third, but then they stretched down from sort of like 4th to 15, and you know, that was a sign that, you know, we were going to go on to great things and win that national. And I think what else made it, I'm going to say, I'd like to say special, but it weren't special at the end, because Malcolm Burdett were managing Barnsley for many years. He was the main sort of driving force behind Barnsley Blacks. He got all our sponsors. He was banker. He looked after all finances and whatever. And Malcolm had been took really ill. In fact, he had cancer. And, you know, his days were numbered. He was in hospital. And we fished the national that day and absolutely annihilated it. We had a record point score. There were 83 teams in that national. So, you know, 83 points for a win, going down to 1 for last. And I think we scored something like 888 points, team of 12. And it was a record point scored at the time. You know, in fact, I still think it stands to this day that it was a record point score. And we dedicated that win to him. I'm feeling up about it. We dedicated that win to him because we was announced as winners, and half an hour later he died. And it was a poignant moment, but a great moment, if that makes sense. So that was something really special for us, for Barnsley, and for Barnsley as a team, you know. And it got us to World Club Champs, which is what we wanted. Like I said, to this day, we've gone on and won it, so they've actually won everything. And I think the other one, which really sticks out in my mind, is the old Embassy pairs. The Embassy pairs, when it was in the UK, I was partnering Jamie Masson, and for years, you know, we tried. And Jamie's one of them anglers. Jamie was a real sort of positive angler, and he taught me a lot about commercials. He taught me a lot how to catch carp on these commercials. Jamie were really in front of his time. He was one of the leaders in the commercial scene as you see it now. He don't fish now, but you know, he was a self-taught angler, but he took to commercial fishing like he was just a brilliant angler. In fact, he won UK champs twice, and we finally qualified for the UK champs. And I always said to him, I said, if we ever qualify for that final, we'll win it, you know. I said, because we can't not. And the final was at Larford, and we'd been to Larford numerous times on qualifiers, and I always used to go on the match league and Jamie used to go on the special league. And I'd been down and I'd fished the festival a couple of weeks prior, and I sorted a good few things out for us. And we had a blazing argument, because I said to him, I says, if we're going to win this, I've got to go on Specie. And he was quite adamant that, no, I'll go on Specie. And I went, listen Jamie, I said, if I go on Specie and you go on Match Lake, we will win it. And we had a little bit of an argument about it, and then we went, do you think? I went, there's no thinks about it, mate, trust me, we'll win it. And sure enough, he went, right, okay, and we did. I went on Specie, Jamie went on Match Lake. I won the match with £187. Jamie won the Match Lake with well over £100. We had a perfect score and walked away with £6,000. So, you know, they're two real big achievements. One's what really stick in my mind as great sort of angling days.
So, who were the best anglers that you've ever fished with, past and present?
Best anglers I've ever fished with, past and present. Oof. Fished with a lot of, you know, I've fished against a lot of good anglers. I've fished against a lot of anglers who were still good. You know, we'll go with past first, and you know, I think everybody from sort of my era, everybody's hero were Ivan Marks, you know, by far. And you know, I watched Ivan for hours upon hours on end, and it weren't until I was probably 14, 15 at the time that I become really good friends with him. In fact, I'm really good friends with his wife Nara and his son Chris. And Ivan was just a god, you know. He never progressed to be some type of superhero, you know. He was the people's champion. But Ivan was brilliant. Ivan was something special. And I think in any form of sport, be it, you know, like fishing, what we do, golf, motor racing and whatever, you've got to have a certain degree of sort of true natural ability. And Ivan was one of them people. It came natural to him. He weren't the tidiest of anglers, in fact he was a right scruffy bugger, but everything were natural to him, and he just did it, and he just did it quite easily. And you could say to him, why did you do that? And he'd say, well, I just did it. And he couldn't ever tell you why he did it, but he did it. And you know, he could always entertain a crowd. He was a good sort of workman. He just knew what to do. Roy Marlowe's another one, you know. Ivan and Roy were partners in Marks and Marlowe. I still do quite a bit of work with Roy at Glebe Fishery, and you know, Roy were a fantastic angler, and Roy fished for England at the time. Never quite probably got the recognition what Ivan got, but you know, I think Roy were the brains behind the pair of them, and all the likely lads, and you know, they were great anglers at that time, and you know, fishing icons really. Present day, I don't think you just can't look any further than Alan Scotto. Alan's a great friend, and Christ almighty, 5 times world champion. Nobody does that. I don't think the feat will ever be repeated. I really don't. Love Alan to bits. He's a great bloke. He's a great ambassador to our sport. Does a lot for it. Learnt me so much in my early days at Barnsley, and even now I could pick the phone up, and having not seen him for months, and we can have a conversation and we can talk about anything, and you know, one thing about fishing, you're never ever too old to still learn things, and Alan's one of these people. He asks a million questions, and you know, if he's catching more than you or you're catching more than him, he wants to know why, and he'll come up and do that. But you know, what a fantastic angler, and you know, he might win it again before he retires, and I hope he does, because it really couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. He's brilliant, and I think the future, what we have in store, the future anglers we've got in store, young Matt Godfrey. Matt Godfrey's he's a machine. The kid, I've known him since he was like a baby, and he's of a similar type of mould as to what Alan is. And Matt's been world junior champion a couple of times, and you know, I could stake my house on it. He'll be world champion one day sooner rather than later. Brilliant angler, and you know, he's got his whole life in front of him in angling, and he again is that angler what he's got that natural ability. He does everything so natural. He's so quick, and just he's a fantastic kid to boot as well, and he's going to be top of that tree. If there's one person that could possibly win it 5 times, and he'll hate me saying it, he's one person that could dethrone Alan. No 2 ways about it. They're the 3 anglers. One other angling icon, can't not say his name, is Dennis White. And if I had one angler to pick to save my life, it would be him to catch a fish. If he had to catch a fish, or somebody to catch a fish to save my life, I would put my money on Dennis White doing it, because he's done everything in this sport. He's put so much into angling. He's done coaching for kids for years, and what a legend that man is, and love him to bits, and I class him as a good friend.
So I can remember as a kid going down to Fleets Dam in Barnsley, and you coaching me personally down at Fleets Dam. So how did you get involved with that? And you talk about Dennis as well. How did you meet up with Dennis?
Coaching at Fleets Dam, well, obviously I was doing a little bit of coaching with Sheffield and things like that, and then it got to a stage where I was too busy at work, and you know, I just bought an house. I met Sarah, we bought an house, we moved in together, and things like that, and it had become awkward. You know, I couldn't fulfil my time and put all the time in, and I wanted to do it. I was fishing for Barnsley. There were team matches here, there and everywhere, but I still wanted to be involved with coaching, and Dennis was doing his coaching, and he used to do it on a Friday evenings. And how all this came about, Sarah's brother went to the same coaching what Dennis did at Fleets Dam, and wanted somebody to take him, and it was either his dad or me. If his dad took him along, I went along, because yeah, I wanted to watch young Matt. I wanted to help him progress, and Dennis was there, and he'd always he'd shout up to me, "Now then, Andy, come and give me a hand here, come and give me a hand." And I'd begin hand with one person, which moved on to 2, which moved on to 3, which all of a sudden then became a weekly thing, and we were helping each other out, coaching these 60, 70 kids we used to get on a Friday night, and yourself probably being included, Dave, in that, and great times. great times, and I feel sorry for Dennis at times because he probably never really got the recognition he deserved for what he did for a lot of Barnsley juniors. You know, speak to any at Barnsley juniors or anybody what's been to Dennis's coaching session, and they were good, they were fun, they were competitive, because Dennis is the most competitive angler you've ever met, and he installed that into these kids, that they had to be competitive, but they would all still remain friends with all, and it were great times. And like I said, that side of it, I wanted to be involved more with Dennis, and it's a shame he had to like stop it all and finish it all with all these do-gooders and do-don'ts and no insurance and whatever, and it's a shame really, because angling's missing that. It's missing kids. We need more kids in our sport. We need more anglers. We need more young kids on seat boxes instead of X boxes. It's just sad. Fishing's been great for me, and like I said, we need to get more and more kids into sport. It's the right thing to do, but whether it'll happen, who knows. But Dennis, he's a god at that, and taught so many kids how to fish.
You've just taken over running the UK Angling Championship, one of the biggest competitions around. Why did you decide to take it on board?
Well, UK Champs, I took it on board. Myself and Sarah, we decided to take it. I fished it for a number of years, and Nigel was running it at the time, and I think it got to a stage where Nigel really, he'd had enough. He couldn't do it no longer. He's really into his stock car racing, and you know, didn't want to do it no longer. And unfortunately, you know, we didn't want to see the competition fold, because it's been running for like 35 years. It's the oldest competition in angling as a individual competition, and we didn't want to see it fold. And Nigel had already approached me. I already approached Sarah, because Sarah loves, you know, running the matches, and said, look, you know, you're great friends, you know how to run the matches, would you take it on board? I've already spoke to Robbie Hughes, who does the filming and that on it, and would you take it on board? Would you carry it on? Because it needs a little bit of an influx of new people, new venues, and everything into it. So yeah, we decided to do it, and you know, it gets filmed, it's on BT Sports. You know, same thing again. You know, as I said earlier, if you can put a little bit of something back into the angling, as what it's been for me, and that's one of the reasons we've done it. Sarah, I must admit, you know, she's great. You know, I couldn't ask for anybody better as a partner. She's my best mate, and she does most of the logistics side of it. She does most of the running of it. Most of the anglers probably don't realise that she does, but it's me. I just do the pegging, and I'm the face of it if anything goes wrong, but Sarah does most of it, and I've got to really thank her for that, because she's took it on board, and fair play to her. You know, I'm not saying it because she's going to watch this, but she does a damn good job in it, and fair play to her. So yeah, so we took it on, and Sarah wants to do it, and I want to try and implement a few sort of like changes and make it a little bit better. Not have the same venues all the time. What I'm hoping to do is hopefully have a new venue or a couple of new venues a year. It's difficult to sort of get venues of 80 anglers and get the right venues, because we have to include the filming side of things and whatever. So we'll probably have a pool of venues where we want to go, which are good for filming, good fishing obviously, and we'll rotate them more or less on like a yearly or 2-year basis, and we'll go to these venues, and it'll keep everybody fresh, keep everybody on the toes. And if we can get any new venues what get recommended to us, we're going to go with them, and I'm really looking forward to UK's, because like I say, it's a great competition, and you ask any of the top anglers out there, you actually look at some of the names on the trophy, and it's like, you know, it's the who's who. And anybody who knows anything about UK Champs, they want to win that sort of like claret jug, what it is. And it's just a great competition, and we're hoping it's going to go from strength to strength, as it always has.
So what's your funniest moment you've ever witnessed on the bank?
Funniest moment I've ever witnessed on the bank? Probably quite a lot. Loads really. Some of them I probably can't ever say. There's one I'm going to say. It's probably it was quite bad at the time, and we only laughed about it after. And I never got this guy's name. It was quite quite funny at the time. I was actually doing a feature. I was doing a feature for Angling Times on the first day of season, 16th of June, and we went on the Trent. We wanted to catch some chub, and this feature more or less went wrong, and it were Mick Rouse from Angling Times. He was the photographer there, and we've gone down, and we've gone to Sutton-on-Trent, and we're actually sat there, and I'm trying to catch some chub in these chub pegs, and there were an angler a few pegs further down on these pegs, and we were on a real sort of big long sandbar, and I'm sat out in the water, and we sat fishing, and we're looking down, and Mick's doing his little bit photography wise, and we see this lad playing a fish further down, and I'm sat there and we're watching. Suddenly he takes a stumble and he's in. And Mick being Mick, and you know, the ultimate professional in photography, carries on snapping his photos, and we're laughing. At that point I said to Mick, tell you what Mick, something don't really look right there mate. I says, you can't get out. And so we're thinking, well, we'll stand up in a minute or whatever. No, he don't. So it's like, uh-oh. So I'm up off my box, Mick's up off his box, we've gone running down to this lad, and we pull him out, and he says, you've got me rod, haven't you? Yeah, got me rod. We tried to stand him up, and then quickly realised that he stumbled and he fell in, and then he says to us, where's my leg? To which we've looked round, and right stuck in the sandbank is this lad's artificial leg, and there it is, and we're like, are you alright? And he went, yeah, I'm alright. And he says, and then we've all bust out laughing. We've literally rolling with laughter, and he says, I hope you've caught that on film, haven't you? And he went, well, yeah, I have. I hope you're going to put it in Angling Times, he says. And it was like, yeah. And we've actually looked at the scene, and there he is, and he's still got this fish on. He's played this bream in, like 4-pound bream, we've netted it, and right at the side of him is this artificial leg stuck in the sand, and he sort of stood there, and we've absolutely laughed about it all day. But this lad, and I really wish I could remember his name, and I have seen him, he was a Sheffield bloke. The only thing he was adamant on were, you will put my picture in Angling Times, won't you? You will put my picture in Angling Times. And that's one of the you know, quite serious at the time, but then when everything unfolded, was just a fantastic sort of laugh a minute story.
So what's next for Andy Kinder?
What's next for Andy Kinder? I'm just going to carry on doing what I do, because I really enjoy my fishing. I enjoy it more so now than I ever have done. I fish a lot more of the bigger competitions now than I have done. I fish festivals, a couple of festivals a year. I go to places where I want to go, and I catch a lot of fish, and I take Sarah, and fishing don't always have to be the most important thing. The most important thing is enjoying what you do, and that's what I enjoy. I enjoy going, I enjoy the fishing, I enjoy being with Sarah, doing what we're doing, and I'm going to carry on. And I think that's the next thing for me. I'm just going to carry on doing what I'm doing, and if I can pass on as much knowledge as I can to some of these people coming through, I'll carry on doing that, and that'll be me till the wrap me in a wooden box, I think.